Okay, thank you. So back to Government Operations Committee, and what we're looking at right now is that we have this infusion of federal money coming in, and we want to know where it might be needed in the areas that we cover. So we've asked, I know that the VLCT has some, I don't know if you've received some money, if you're set to receive money, if you need that money to help municipalities, and the same thing with the planning commissions. I think that there's some requests there, and EMS, and then you're hearing from Jack Anderson, who is the chair or president of the Assistant Judges Association. So I guess, does anybody have a time constraint, first of all? Oh, and then Mark Anderson had some suggestions this morning for me. So does anybody have a time constraint so that they need to go first to get out of here? Yeah, okay, Mark.
Madam Chair, not so much of a time constraint as much as I wasn't an invited guest for today, and that's okay. I just wanted to flag for the committee that the sheriffs are meeting tomorrow, and this was one of our things to discuss. So it was simply a timing issue that we weren't prepared to respond today. So if this discussion comes up, we would just like to flag ourselves for your consideration.
Yep, we will.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you're welcome to stay with us, even if you weren't invited.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, just for clarification, my understanding was protocol or etiquette was if you weren't testifying to turn off your camera. Is that correct? Or
it isn't that important to me. I think that for what we've heard is that for people out there viewing us on YouTube, that it's sometimes confusing for people to know who the committee members are and who they're not. And so that has been a suggestion that if you're speaking, that you would have your camera on, and if you're not, only the committee members would. But I don't have strong feelings about it one way or the other. I don't know if the other committee members do. Committee?
I think I was the last probably to raise it on a topic that I considered really sensitive, and it was hard to know if others in the room were listening to the concerns of a specific group of people, you know, testifying pretty passionately about their feelings. So I don't think the same level of passion is going to arise on this topic. I could be wrong, you know, but I think it's about an external perception of how other people are listening to witnesses that we have. So I think it's still a personal call, frankly, but I was the last person to raise that on a topic I thought was very different and sensitive.
Yeah, I think that's right. Allison?
I think if people are in the room and witnesses with us, it's good to have the camera on. I mean, they would be, we would be looking at them if they were in the room with us. So strikes me that it's much easier for me to have a sense of who we're actually working with if we can see them all. Plus, it's just so good to see Jack and Peter and Karen and Gwen in it, and Mark.
So I'm fine. Just, you can leave them on, you can turn them off. It's really up to you.
And I'm missing Drew.
What?
There he is. Much nicer.
So if I would ask then that maybe we start with EMS, if that's okay with everybody. So Drew, would you like to, I don't know if you have particular issues. I know we talked before about the tuition, extending that, if there's extension of development of the new positions, or so just let us know what it is that you think might, we don't even know what would be eligible yet. So we're just taking ideas at this point.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I think this committee probably knows more about EMS than they ever cared to learn about EMS. So I don't need to give you guys a whole lot of background, but the concerns that we've had previously about kind of the status of EMS in Vermont have mostly been unchanged through the last year. We did invest a significant chunk of money into EMS education to help us kind of prop up the system through the pandemic using hybrid education. Even with that effort, we're still down about 200 EMS providers over last year. So just as a kind of a math reminder, there's about 2,800 EMS providers in Vermont, and we've been losing between 10 and 20% of that every single year. And those numbers keep dropping, even though the need continues to increase. And with the kind of the workforce development funds that were put through last year, we were able to fund some additional paramedic classes, though the number of students was relatively small compared to the need. We did fund some EMT and advanced EMT programs, which are mostly finishing up now, and we'll be putting some new EMS providers into our system. But again, we're still probably going to be about 200 people short from where we were a year ago. So there's certainly a need for additional financial support for workforce development. And we've talked about in the past some of the challenges with access to paramedic education in Vermont, being the tuition, which is 3-4 times what it is in other areas. Even with the grants provided last year, many of the current paramedic students are left with bills that are more than they would have been if they'd just gone out of state, which is kind of a sad state of affairs. And more of a longer term solution is necessary for kind of the workforce development in EMS. So the advisory committee and the education council have been working on that with some of the legislation you passed last year, developing the new instructor coordinator levels and working on proficiency-based evaluation, as well as the new Vermont responder. And we've kind of finalized and approved that plan. It's headed to rulemaking so that we will have it rolled out ahead of the deadline that was set, which is July 1st. So as we kind of roll those areas forward, we're going to need to support some instructor coordinator training education, as well as get some funds into the hands of communities for that Vermont responder. So just to kind of make things a little bit worse, we lost about 30% of our instructor coordinators this year. So in a time where we need kind of to bolster our ability to train people in Vermont, we've actually lost more than we ever have before. So that's going to be certainly an area of concern and a need for some funds. The training position that we've spoken about for the last couple of years that's been vacant was filled earlier this week. So hopefully with that position being filled, we'll be able to start kind of putting together a more robust training and education program.
Drew, sorry, what was the coordinator? What was the type of coordinator you lost?
Instructor coordinators, the people that are allowed to actually hold classes in Vermont.
Right.
Why did we lose so many?
There was some additional requirements that were added a few years ago to those positions in order to maintain their certification. So as their recertifications came due, there was a chunk of those instructor coordinators that were did not meet the ongoing education requirements, and there were simply some that chose not to not to renew.
So I guess committee, does somebody have a question for Drew before I launch into my?
You'll inspire us with more questions, I'm sure. So go for
I
it.
guess it would be helpful. What we're being asked is to come up with amounts of money and where it might be needed. And then it will be a joint effort between all of the committees and the appropriations committee to figure out what is what's appropriate, what can be used and out of what bucket of money, because there are buckets. And so it would be helpful to me anyway, if we had some kind of a number attached to these, like how much do you need to do the instructor coordinator education and training, and what kind of tuition money would be helpful? Again, are those people who are stuck with $12,000 tuition bills? I mean, I know that that's a lot of money to put into one person, but are there people dropping out because they can't finish the $12,000? Would that be helpful? Would it be helpful to have training money and for the Vermont, I think they're called Vermont first responders, the new category? So if we could have just even ballpark figures about what they would be used for, and then we could work with appropriations. Does that make sense to anybody? Yeah, Senator Clarkson?
It makes a lot of sense because we're in a challenging position with ARPA because we don't have the guidance, and yet money is already being funneled in areas and it's unclear how they're getting funneled or why. And so EMS is a good question. And just like we're going to hear about the court system, we're going to hear about other things and the interplay between the towns getting money and EMS. I mean, so my question is, and it's one maybe that Karen and Gwen can answer, and they may not know yet with the guidance, but some of our EMS departments are with towns and embedded in towns, and some aren't, and some are independent, some are nonprofit independents. And so in as much as some of the EMS departments are part of towns, will they be covered independent of our ask of our $1 billion that we have as a state? Will they be covered, the town departments, will they be covered by town money that the towns are getting independent of the legislature?
Yeah, I don't know that.
I know, but those are the kinds of things we need to clarify.
Right. But we need some kind of.
Karen, do you have a sense of that? Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you were actually asking the question yet. So this is Karen Horn at the League of Cities and Towns. We really don't have a sense of that in terms of specific municipalities, but the legislation does provide for pay for essential workers up to a certain amount during the COVID pandemic. So that's one of the categories for the local funding that's eligible. Also, replacing lost revenues is eligible at the local level, and water, sewer, and broadband. But as to Treasury guidance, Senator, we don't have any yet,
I know this is our challenge because we're being asked to appropriate, and yet we're not actually fully clear on who's in what bucket and why, and where is workforce development, which is, and we hear in the infrastructure bill that there may be quite a bit of workforce development money. So anyway.
Well, I think our challenge is from this committee is to put together lists of requests that EMS and others need, that they feel is needed. And our appropriations committee will try and figure out, along with the rest of the Senate and the committees, where those needs rightly belong. I mean, it might be that the EMS funding doesn't fit under any ARPA things at all, but if other things fit under ARPA, then is there general fund money that could be used there? So I think that what we need to do is try and figure out what money is needed in those areas that we cover, and then try and figure out where it might be funded from, if that makes any sense.
Yes, I think at this point, that's what we have to do, is clarify the need.
Yeah.
Because it is so unclear which bucket anything will come from. And yet we also need to be aware that there are these different buckets that are being managed and directed by different bodies.
Right, right. But I want to get the needs first.
Great.
So Drew, if you could help us figure out some of what actual, I mean, last year you came up with some actual numbers that we put into training and into both the training for the paramedics and for the advanced EMTs. And if you could come up with some real numbers, even if they're just ballpark figures, that would be really helpful.
Would you be shocked to know that I have already done that? And I'll be glad to send it to you.
Oh, why does that not surprise me?
So as we kind of look at this, the other thing I want you guys to also think about is, I know we're talking about one-time, federal dollars. This has been an ongoing problem. We've got to come up with a long-term solution.
Mhm.
That is one thing that the committee's been working on, is access and affordable, sustainable long-term education. And we are going to have to come up with a way that we can continue bringing the EMS workforce into Vermont and keeping the workforce that we do have in Vermont. So EMS services are at a huge disadvantage when it comes to retaining employees because of the low Medicaid reimbursement rates.
Yep.
And the current kind of competition from bordering states and other services. So it's not possible with the way that we're reimbursed in Vermont for us to compete with New Hampshire and Massachusetts for staff. Right now I know just in our organization, we're down 3 paramedics, which has our staff all working, more than 100 hours a week per person, just to try to cover the schedule with no light at the end of this tunnel. So unless we can do something about, long-term about being able to pay competitive wages and be able to retain the workforce that is in the EMS, this is going to be an ongoing problem. We've had many of discussions at our committee level about whether what we're facing is a recruitment problem or a retention problem. And with the numbers of 20% turnover a year, I'm starting to think that what we're looking at is more a retention problem than a recruitment problem. If we look at the number of students that we're bringing through, between 400 and 500 people are joining or at least attempting to join EMS through signing up for classes every year. But yet we're falling behind in our total workforce year after year. So though I think the recruitment efforts are really important, and I believe the Vermont Responder will probably bring 300 or 400 more people into the kind of the EMS world, we are going to have a long-term approach to retaining EMS workforce. As Vermont continues to age, as services at hospitals continue to shift, more and more of the healthcare burden is getting shifted to EMS. I'm sure you guys know how much work the EMS system has done during this pandemic, everything from COVID testing to right now, all of the at-home COVID vaccines are being done by EMS. Our organization alone has made over 2,000 home visits doing the vaccines. So I think it is an important system that needs to be, have some long-term consideration.
You're right about that. And I think that we will continue to work on some of those issues around reimbursement and how we deal with that. Because you're right, and we won't use one-time money for that, but we need to look at some long-term solutions. So you will send us that?
I can, or I can tell you what what it looks like if you want to hear it now, or I can send it and you can discuss it or put it into your notes.
Well, I'm trying to think here how we will do this. if we want to hear it now, or if we want to go to the others and hear what their needs are, and then if they have actual, just the outline of what it is that they think they need. Is that okay with you, Drew?
Yep, great.
Okay. So we don't very often have Jack Anderson with us. So my old Trivial Pursuit partner, if you would like to tell us what you brought up in terms of the assistant judges or the counties.
Sure. Thank you. And thanks for having me. I'm Jack Anderson. I'm assistant judge in Windsor County, and currently the president of the Vermont Association of County Judges. Earlier on in the pandemic, several months ago, the Supreme Court actually contacted the assistant judges, and they were concerned about ventilation during the pandemic and wanted to make sure that the county courthouses were up to snuff and safe for the employees. We did an inventory with the help of an engineer that was hired by Judiciary to take stock of the courthouses and who had what and what needed to be done. And the results were varied, but we know that we're into spending some money. There are 14 counties, of course. There are 7 courthouses, county courthouses in Orleans, Essex, Bennington, Wyndham, Grand Isle, Franklin, and Washington that have virtually no HVAC. So in the winter, they're bottled up tight. And luckily, we're coming into fresh air season, so there's going to be a little bit of a respite. But before the winter, we would like to get the HVAC systems installed and or upgraded. And I'll tell you, when I got something from Representative Charlie Kimball, my current representative, and he emailed me a spreadsheet that was from the Addison County Economic Development folks. And I think I sent it to you, Allison. And my heart started to beat fast because I saw $121 million on there designated for counties. And I'm not sure how this is being handled, where the counties fit into the municipalities, where the sources of money are, but we have a rough estimate based on square footage of what it would cost to bring these up to code. And there is a code, something like 15 square feet of fresh air per person per hour, or, it's something we have to put in. Now, those 7 need just about everything from scratch. No work is needed in Addison, Lamoille, or Caledonia, as far as I know, because I believe in all of those 3, they're taken care of by BGS. And there are some, like Rutland, Woodstock, Orange, and Chittenden, that are well on the way to being code compliant, but need a little bit of funding to get over the top. So we're into, and we're looking, obviously, like everybody else, at some of this COVID money. This is directly COVID related. And I will tell you that Judiciary has been working with the counties and has been very generous with some of the CARES money that they had last year. When they realized they had until the end of this year to disperse that, they have set up several of the county courthouses with HEPA filters, very nice, expensive HEPA filters that have ultraviolet light disinfectant and that sort of thing. But that's intended to be a Band-Aid to get us through the winter. And in the fall, before the winter comes again, we'd like to make these safe. And, it's a matter of, these are historic buildings. Most of them, I'm sure, are on the National Register. And right now, because they're not safe, we cannot provide access to justice, which is what we are supposed to be doing. You look back when the shire towns were set up, 1 in each county, so people would be locally close to a place where they can get justice. And I'm not sure if you're aware of it, we haven't had a jury trial in months and months and months because we just don't have the safe facilities. My courthouse in Woodstock, because of the renovation we did 6 or 7 years ago, has been cleared for jury trials, but lots and lots of contingencies. For example, the jury has to deliberate in the courtroom. So there's going to be logistical things, but we have the air exchange, so it's safe for COVID. And even if COVID goes away, and I hope it does one day, I've been telling my fellow judges, a good HVA system is a good thing to have, pandemic or not, because of all the other bugs that are going around. So I don't have an exact number. We are still doing assessments. The engineer is traveling about, working with Greg Mousley and Zolly Holcraft, and we're trying to come up with some firm numbers and use the money. You know, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, a once in a building's lifetime opportunity to make it safe for the people that need to get in there and do their business, and for jurors and parties and attorneys and all of that. There's not enough hand sanitizer to do that all by itself.
Right.
And that's
So if you can, as soon as you get even a ballpark figure on that.
Yep.
Send it to us.
Okay.
So that we can include that. And then we have to deal with the issue of how, and we were told the other day that the feds don't like our county setup because we don't have county commissioners. So we're just, that's another issue we're just gonna have to deal with.
Yeah, we are a real hybrid that way. And I can see why, you know, the county government and states that I'm familiar with is completely different than ours.
Right.
And they have a lot of authority, and they have commissioners, and they spend money, and they send money to towns and so on, but not here.
Right.
But I just wanted to let everybody know that, you know, there is county government, not much of it left. We have a budget, we have taxing authority, and under Title 24, I'm quoting now, Section 71A, each county shall provide and own a suitable courthouse, pay all utility and custodial services, and keep such courthouse suitably furnished and equipped for use by the Superior Court and the Probate Court. And a suitable courthouse has had several meanings over the years, I'm sure. When mine was built, it was probably a bench and a few wood stoves and a desk, but things have changed. So
Yeah, no, I agree with you that we do have county, but they still don't like us. And I know during Irene, we had to convince them that the planning commissions could act as the county for different things. But so it's, I'm just saying that it is an issue we have to address, and we're perfectly happy to take it on, but we do have to address it. Senator Clarkson?
Okay.
Well, first of all, Jack, do you have a ballpark figure, don't you, already on those 7 courthouses?
I have the spreadsheet that was prepared by Judiciary, and I am looking at it, and Zolly Holcraft did this. We have a range. We have budget high and budget low. So there's a range, and it's for a 20,000 square foot courthouse. That's the template. And these are guesstimates. And you'd be scared if I told you what the high numbers were right now. They're concerning.
I think it makes more sense to be a little more specific here per courthouse, so that we can actually look at it, so that we're because appropriations is going to be real going down to the penny.
Right. But the second part of my question is, I thought there had been a determination made actually about the Vermont counties and where that money was where the county money was being funneled. And I thought Karen and or Peter Gregory would have the answer to that, because I believe there is a determination already been made about that.
Okay.
This is Karen Horn. I don't believe that there's been a final determination, Senator. And it is a decision that's eventually made by the US Treasury. So there are 2 pieces at play. One is how the county money is allocated, and it sounds like that's going to go to the individual towns proportional to their population in the whole county. But the other piece is incorporated villages. And so if you have an incorporated village, a portion of the town's money will go to the village, and those calculations haven't been done yet either. So we don't have final answers on any of that.
So,
and I think we need to be really careful about how, and we will hear more about this from Karen and Gwen, but and from Peter, about if the county money is instead being divided up and sent to the towns, that means there's no money for the county. And so we have to be, I think, very careful about how we defend our need to have county money. And I'm not saying that we should shortchange the towns, but the towns are getting
the towns
separate amounts of money. And I think we need to be very careful about that. And that's what we heard from Jane, from whoever did our walkthrough the last time we had this, about what Karen just said, that is the way they're looking at it now. And I think we need to be ready to defend our counties.
Absolutely. And to that end, I guess what my follow-up would be, if this decision is still with the Treasury, we maybe as a Senate Government Operations Committee might write one of our letters to the U.S. Treasury to defend the county costs that we actually have, both with our, I mean, the two areas of county government are the courts and the sheriffs, and defend that and have a specific number. I mean, I think we should be prepared to advocate for that if we need to, if Peter and Karen feel we need to do that, and everybody else, Mark and Jack.
Right. I think that's what I was just trying to say, is that.
Good.
Yeah, Sheriff Anderson and I spoke this afternoon, and he made a good point. Not only do we have the Windsor County Courthouse that we have to take care of, we also have 62 Pleasant Street, the former Woodstock Correctional Center that went out of business back in 2001. That is now the county building, and it houses the sheriff. And we're not sure about the air quality in that building either. So
Yeah. Or in our sheriff's office also either there.
yes.
So we do
exactly.
have, I think that we need to, this committee needs to be prepared to defend counties.
Boy, that sounds very good to me.
Yes, that is exactly what I was trying to say, Senator Clarkson. Sorry if
I'm supporting you because your letters are famous and get results.
So let's get, Jack, if you can send us the, once you, and hopefully that'll be relatively soon that.
I will
Greg
push
can,
everybody's buttons. I also wanted to make you aware that the House Institutions Committee in their ARPA money allotment, or whatever we call it, put aside $51 million to be shared between the legislature and the judiciary. And that means 25.5 million for the judiciary. And that might be another way for the counties to get some of the funding, but I have had no commitment that part of that 25.5 million will be given to the courthouses. It's expected to be given. It probably will be given, but I don't have a definitive, comfortable answer on that.
Yeah, I don't know what the House did at all.
I just wanted to bring that in. I'm
Yeah.
working two sides at once here. You know.
Yeah.
Let
Okay,
me
and I
what else
know
I can do. Okay.
what?
Let me know what else I can do.
Yeah, you can get us the money. I mean, the amounts.
Okay.
And then if there are like the old Woodstock prison and then our sheriff's office, I know our sheriff's office, believe me, I worked in there for one summer and fall, and there is no air in there.
Right. Yep.
No air.
Right.
So, but there are bars. Because it used to be the jail.
Oh, I was thinking bars.
I was thinking the horizontal bars there.
Yeah.
No. So,
Peter,
all
Gregory,
right.
I want to send a shout out to you. How are you?
Okay, so we'll get that. We'll get the numbers from Drew. We'll get the numbers from Jack. Now, I think that let's jump to what I had in mind here, and I think what we heard was that I had heard that the LCT and the planning commissions needed some kind of resource in order to help the towns with the because there's a lot of strings attached and reporting and everything. But then I was told that the towns already, the VLCT got $900,000 and the planning commissions also got money. So now I'm not sure if you still are in need of money or where we are. So if you would, the two of you would like to take us someplace?
So this is Karen. I might start off. H 315 is actually on your calendar to concur with with House amendments tomorrow. And section 26 of that bill provides $650,000 to VLCT to set up a ARPA coordination and assistance program that will look sort of macro level at at helping towns with record keeping what are eligible projects, tracking all the requirements that come with ARPA dollars. And there's $300,000 to the regional commissions to do project management for municipalities. So that bill is actually up. You need to vote on it tomorrow or we don't get anything.
Should we support it?
I would suggest, we would be delighted if you would support it. I think Peter might also be delighted. So do you want me to stop there? Or do you want me to go on with my spiel?
Well, I guess, does that take care of your needs?
So speaking at least for the cities and towns, there's VLCT and that allows us to stand up this program. We've already started recruiting for a coordinator to run that program. And so the organization does not need anything else. The cities and towns are getting $57.4 million local direct aid. And then the allocation from the ARPA, US Treasury to counties is $121 million. And we don't know how that is going to be resolved at this point. So we have been, I did send to Gail a sort of summary of what we're doing with our coordination program and also what the funding looks like right now. We are urging towns that since they have until the end of 2024 to spend these dollars, to be thoughtful about it, to assess their priorities, to talk to their neighboring communities about what are some projects that would be multi-municipal that they could work on together. And then we're also encouraging towns to look first to the state ARPA dollars, because you have money for broadband and for water and sewer and for rental assistance and a number of those kinds of items. So we're asking them to look there first because those are dedicated funds. And then we've been looking at the governor's American Rescue Plan Act proposal that he unveiled yesterday, and he's got 5 different buckets of funding. And I would just call out one of them, given Jack Anderson's comments earlier, but one of them is climate change. And we heard yesterday from the governor's office that included in some of the projects they're thinking about are some municipal buildings and weatherization, and I would think HVAC, because that goes hand in hand with it. And the courthouses may want to look to that bucket for some of their improvements also. And that proposed amount is $200 million over the course of 1, 2, 3.5 years. So there's a number of ways to tackle these kinds of priorities.
We just need to remember that that's the governor's proposal. That's not ours.
Right. No, I do remember that. That would be my job, but but I also think, and this might be going way out on a limb, Senator, I also think that your priorities for funding are not that different But what the struggle might be is who gets to make the calls. But
Well,
you're all looking at climate issues, you're all looking at water, sewer, economic development, those kinds of things.
but we are also looking at, there was nothing in there for human needs. And I think that was a big issue for the Senate.
There was no money for judiciary. There was no money for workforce development. There was no money for healthcare, mental health, or substance abuse, or the women's prison. So there was a lot missing from the governor's
Right.
proposal.
So, and we will consider all that, but that is, I mean, there are different ways of addressing the needs. And I think that what we need to do is get all the needs together and then try and figure out where they best fit and how, when there's some resolution about what the money is going to be for in each bucket and what
Right.
the guidelines are, because we don't even know that yet.
Yeah, well, the
Well-
guidance is so important. Yeah. And I will say that, you know, we've got this, as Jack mentioned, there's pent up demand from decades for water, sewer, you know, broadband, any kind of infrastructure project. So it looks like so much money, but, you know, given the need, it's not really so much money.
Yeah, it isn't. So Peter, oh, I'm sorry.
I just
Yeah.
want to say thank you to everyone. I'm going to leave the meeting. It's nice to see you all again, and we'll be in touch, okay?
Nice to see you.
You bet. Take care. now.
We'll have a trivia question for you next time you come.
Okay, I'll tackle it.
Okay. So, Peter?
Good afternoon, Chair White, members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me here today. Karen did a nice job kind of outlining some of the funding sources. I would just echo the issue about the county money. And although we tried very hard to get the definition of unit of general local government to be a little bit broader when the bill was being drafted in Washington, we weren't successful because we've been around this turn a couple of times, as you alluded to, Senator White, about the county issue here. And despite having an outstanding delegation, they weren't able to make that change for us. But maybe the guidance will be a little bit more broad for all of us. But I think you know that there are county needs, but unfortunately, if the guidance doesn't broaden the definition out, it will go to the communities. And then I would echo Jack's suggestion that the state funds be used to help on the courthouses and the few county functions and assets that we do have. The funding that is in H315 for regional planning commissions is designed to complement what is going to the league, not duplicate. I just want to make sure that's clear, even though we have the same constituency. We know their needs a little bit more finely grained than perhaps the league does, working with their town plans and capital budgeting and stuff for many years. So we will also be helping them pick effective investments based on their needs and the public processes that they've had through the years on their plans. The one area that this committee has dealt with over a couple of years is shared services. And again, I want to thank you and the committee for your foresight in getting that in statute a couple of years ago. But this committee has grappled with the uneven provision of perhaps great levels of law enforcement among communities in the rural areas in particular. I think that there needs to be a lot of discussion among communities, and I think Karen mentioned multi-town solutions to their investments. I think there needs to be a mechanism whereby our communities can have the conversation about where we can look at combining services, or at least talking about it. Right now, there's never really been a funding source to kind of facilitate those discussions, but I think even without COVID, those were discussions that needed to take place. Inevitably, they would have taken place, but we have not had the resources to bring those people together and have those tedious and difficult discussions about service provision, not only from a cost perspective, but also a service levels perspective. So I think that would be one area I would suggest that is not covered or not spoken about by anybody up to this point, which would be a good state level investment. And I think, again, the regional planning commissions who have now changed their bylaws to allow shared services would be the appropriate entities to begin facilitating those discussions, bringing together all the parties that can add some depth to those conversations. But so I will leave it at that, and glad to answer any questions about our role. I think you all know very well what the regional planning commissions do, and I know we're going to be very active in helping state government as well. They're going to be in some cases overwhelmed with the amount of money flowing. We're a resource also for state government in providing services to communities, in contracting, and being an extension of state government staff. We've done that traditionally for decades and see a big role in that way as well.
Any questions for Peter? Do you, Karen or Peter or Gwen? Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Rom, did you have a question?
It was a little bit of a comment to gauge reaction, but I was really grateful to see that the governor included funding for the Working Communities Challenge proposals that didn't receive funding from the Federal Reserve Bank, because I think it's just a great example of regional thinking coming from municipalities on shared projects and investments. So just a pitch to, and I know now at VLCT you have a big champion for Working Communities Challenge in TED, but just a pitch to sort of keep that under your wing as well, because it's a great example of municipalities trying to think regionally as that budget sort of pulled apart by us.
Good, thank you. Karen or Peter, do you know, or Gwen, and I should know this, but what is the formula for distributing the I think it's 56 million to the municipalities?
Yeah, 57.
So it's 57.4, well, 57.5 million. And it's based on population in, so you take the population of the state, not Burlington. Okay, I need to be clear about that, because Burlington is a metro city and has its own allocation of $19 million. So 245 municipalities will share the 57.4 million, and it's allocated based on population.
So it's, the population is approximately 500,000 that we're working with. Oh, no, 120 is all of Chittenden County. Burlington is about 60.
Burlington's about 60, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, all right.
And the early spreadsheets that you may have seen from the congressional delegation offices do have the appropriations of the local direct aid, the town money.
Yeah.
It doesn't account for the county money, but it does have pretty clear estimates on the local direct aid.
And where do we see that? I know I've seen some of the highlights of it with a few towns, but where is that on your website that we could see that, or could you send that to us?
I can send it to you, yeah. Or I may ask Rebecca Ellis to send it to you because she might have a better spreadsheet, but yes, we'll get it to you.
So not to be contradictory, I just want to make sure there's no like weird population calculation I'm not aware of. Burlington's 42,000 people. So I don't know if they are counting like a greater metro area for Burlington that includes
Oh, I just guessed 60.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
didn't think it was that big.
I just didn't know if there's a different calculation for population around the state than
No,
like people.
no. So Burlington just gets its own allocation,
Okay.
and they're not part of the population calculation at all. But you would take that population out of the state total, right? But Burlington gets its 19 million.
Okay, but the metro area isn't like South Burlington and Winooski too.
No, it's just Burlington.
Yeah, I just guessed at 60.
Okay.
That
Yeah. no,
By the
I-
time we get the census figures, it'll be up and the rest of us will be down, so.
It stayed pretty steady for the last 100 years. So.
Any more questions or anybody? Mark, did you want to weigh in at all, or do you want to wait until you meet with the, Mark is just about hopefully to become the new chair, president, what are you called?
President of the Sheriff's Association. I'm currently interim president, and we have elections in May.
And because, do you want to share Bill Boniak's news with us?
Yes, so thank you, Madam Chair. If you weren't aware, Sheriff Boniak was, I believe, the second vice president of the National Sheriff's Association. The National Sheriff's Association has about a 5 or 6 year succession line to become the president of the National Association. He has skipped to the first vice chair seat, and he will become the National Sheriff's Association president in approximately 1 year. So he is stepping back from the state association in light of his newfound responsibilities at the national level. And it's a great honor for him and for the state to be representing the national level.
Great.
Great. So if you want to have your conversation with the Sheriff's Association and then come to us and actually, and then, yeah, okay. So
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I do have a question for Karen. We had, I heard from our town clerk who was very, very excited and very happy about getting money for digitizing, and said that went really well. And then I thought that there might be a way to put some money in here for continuing that project, but then heard that it's such a mess that we shouldn't go there. So will you weigh in on that? You're muted.
I have a puppy, so I mute myself a lot.
Okay.
What is such a mess? I'm not quite understanding.
What I heard was that the towns are using different platforms and that it isn't helpful to the who are the title searchers. And so I just wondered about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or should we, I thought it was a very good use of some of this money to continue that project.
So my understanding is that there's only 2 or 3 platforms around the state that towns are using for digitization. So I'm not sure what that confusion would be about. The question of whether digitization is an eligible, use of funds under ARPA, I don't have a good answer on that right now. It seems sort of intuitive that you could use it on those funds on those projects since the issue became so apparent during the pandemic, but I don't have an answer.
Okay, well, it wasn't a question of whether they were eligible or not. It was, let me check with Chuck Starro.
Yeah.
Because he was
Or,
scheduled to
you
come
might
on.
also ask Tanya
Okay,
at the Secretary of State's office.
yeah. Okay,
Well, it would be a question of eligibility, wouldn't it, Jeanette? I mean,
well, it would be, but that wasn't the concern that was raised about, and I'm not sure what will be eligible at all, but I think we need to get all the requests out there and then determine whether they're eligible or not. I don't want us to tie our hands thinking that it might not be eligible if it would be, if it's needed.
I agree. I think this is our opportunity to think big and inclusively of our needs
Exactly.
and not without regard to whether they'll be eligible or not. I completely agree with you. Throw it all on the wall and let's see what can stick and see what works. But to that end, Mark Anderson has just gone off screen, and I was sort of hoping we'd hear what the sheriff's needs were. Are we planning on hearing?
he specifically said that he's meeting with them tomorrow and then will
Oh,
come
I'm
back
sorry.
to
I'm
us.
hearing that. I'm sorry.
I believe that was what he said.
That's correct, Madam Chair. I apologize. I've been trying to deal with two different issues going on
Yeah.
while the
Sorry, I
committee's
missed
meeting.
hearing that you were going to get back to us.
All right, so we'll get amounts from Drew and from Jack. And Peter, if you have any sense of the kinds of money that might be needed in order to look at how to look at the law enforcement. I'd be very excited about that if we can do something like that. I'd jump on that in a minute because I've been working on that for 5 years.
Right. I assume that it would resonate well with you. I'll come together with some of my colleagues quickly and get back to you with something.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else right now? So we're going to, I suppose we could think about voting for 315 tomorrow, H 315, to make Karen happy.
We'll send you lots of thank you notes.
Anything else, committee?
Well, start here.
Not on this, but
Okay, well, in that case, I think I'll thank the people who came and will be, you'll be hearing from us again, once we get the numbers and we start looking at that. And
Thanks, everyone.
thank
Yeah.
you.
and Karen, thanks for that list of the town allocations. That'll be great if we can get that.
Yeah.
Yeah,